Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday at 12, and I'm Susan McConnell, your LinkedIn for the Reserved champion. Thanks for being here. I hope you're all here. If you're here, put a thumbs up, give a comment, or just watch, or watch us on replay, which could happen. And if you are watching on replay and you like what you're here, please comment. But I have this conversation every Tuesday, and I bring on different people to help my network find actionable ways to improve their businesses so that they can do what I always say and be fabulous today. Now, I usually do a LinkedIn tip, but I was away for a few days and I haven't been on vacation since I can't remember. So my tip is that every once in a while you need to not be on social media because it was amazing and I feel great. So it's awesome. That's my tip. Once in a while, shut it down. My guest for today is Audrey Halpern from ARH Employee Training. Audrey and I met a few months back, and we are very similar. We talk a lot about sales training, soft skills, emotional intelligence, etc., etc. Audrey has had an exemplary 20-plus year career developing customized employee essential interpersonal soft skills and sales skills. Awesome training programs. And she's done a lot of facilitation as well. She's a distinguished faculty member of the American Management Association. So welcome, Audrey. I'm so glad to have you here. This is going to be great.
Thank you, Susan, for having me. And I think the tip that you really should have mentioned is wear sunscreen.
Oh, I did quite a bit, and a hat. Yes. And when you go out on the beach, don't forget your sunscreen, which we did one day, but we had like little, I don't know what they were, like hood things over the chairs.
Sounds like a great time. And it's a perfect opportunity to step away from social media and LinkedIn. We all need to at some point.
Yeah, I really honestly haven't done that in so long. It was pretty incredible. But anyways, we are here today and we want to talk about sales training, soft skills. And my question, I guess my first one for you is, why do communication, creativity, persuasion, and analytical reason rank as the top most in-demand skills for employees?
Oh my, that's
a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. It's a really broad topic. Well, if you think about it in this way, when people think of creativity, they think of art and graphic designers and painters and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what it means to be creative. I myself have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in painting and art history. And what am I doing?
And in sales. I love it.
And sales. And what am I doing? Well, it's about forwarding the conversation. It's about educating and making informed decisions. Yeah, an artist can be creative, but so can a software engineer. So could a salesperson. So could a CEO. I mean, creativity opens up the mind, right? It allows us to view problems more openly. And good communication skills are at the heart of all of that. It's the ability to become effective at sharing information. My first job out of college was working as a docent at the Guggenheim Museum.
Oh, awesome.
And so if you can imagine these folks looking at all this artwork on the wall, and shrugging their shoulders and going, well, I can do that. You have to be able to educate them about what it is they're looking at. And part of my creativity as a docent was to be able to pivot and say, okay, well, let's take an analogy or a metaphor and let's see if we can deconstruct what it is that you're looking at so that they're educated. And really, that's what sales is, right? It's just educating your prospect about whatever it is. So it's crucial.
Yes, I really, the education piece is essential. But what you say about creativity also, I think, comes into the conversations that you have with somebody. And when I said the word persuasion, sometimes I almost cringe when I hear persuasion, because it's really not persuasion when you make it about them. True. When you make it something that's helpful for them and answers questions or solves a problem for them, it's not persuading someone, it's leading them to make a decision that is going to be a good decision that's going to help them move forward in whatever it might be. And in our case, it's helping with soft skills and sales training, but in anything,
You're
it's about,
absolutely right.
yeah, it's the
Um,
communication.
the skills themselves are important because if you're taking in all this new information and mentally processing it, you need to be able to process it in a productive way. And if your persuasion skills are such that you can influence them thinking about a particular problem in another way, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right. So it's really not persuasion, it's really teaching in a way.
It's opening someone's mind to other possibilities. So when you talk about like the whole idea of emotional intelligence and blind spots, it all fits together. So yeah, I mean, training. I have this thing with training and teaching. Teaching to me is, learning a brand new something skill like a teacher would teach you in first or second or third grade. To me, training is taking what you already know and sort of building on it and move forward with it and try different things. But you're absolutely right.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think it's not that you go through one set of training and that's all you're going to need for
Mhm.
the rest of your career or even, your life. It's about always learning new things and how to apply it and how it affects you and how you can do things better to help others, which is kind of, it's a great, it's great.
It's what we do, right? It's what
Yeah.
our passion is. I know you and I have talked about this. My particular passion and my philosophy is centered around, well, how can I improve things around me, and how can I help people and assist them in becoming more self-sufficient or self-confident in their roles at work, in their jobs, and that to me is communication. It's listening. It's opening someone's mind. It's offering a different solution or a different take on something.
Right. And so as part of the mindset go tradition, it's about
Yes,
listening to understand
that's
as
correct.
opposed to listening to react.
Exactly. And just like you said with
Yes.
sales, oftentimes salespeople talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and they're loath to listen because, hey, they have all the answers, right?
Imagine that. The worst questions are the ones not asked. I loved that. That was perfect. So, in this time that we're in here, we are experiencing what we call the great resignation. We have
Yeah.
people leaving positions, finding new positions, and companies are having a hard time retaining employees. So, employee training programs are being looked at for people to put in their onboarding programs or a part of their packages to new prospective employees. So training is important and it's going to be a large investment. And I think it's something that needs to be, like I said, in there. Um, Tell us about that investment and tell us why finding the ideal facilitator, is it's definitely a daunting task to find the right person.
It is for a number of reasons. I mean, your investment in your employees is paramount. It's critical, and retaining top talent, like you said, is becoming that much more challenging.
Yes.
One of the things that companies don't do is they don't have programs in place to build on those skills in order to retain employees. Um, you talked about communication, for example. That's one of the hardest skills to find when you're recruiting. And if you think about communication, it takes up all of our working hours. Think about all the meetings that we go to. And
Absolutely.
it's the number one skill that recruiters are looking for. I think there's a big misperception, in my opinion, between training and onboarding.
I
So
agree.
onboarding is, ongoing. Well, as training should be too, but you want to find the right cadence and the right cultural fit for your program. And it should include making that employee feel not only welcome, but part of a team. And I think a lot of times onboarding programs uh, throw things at you, like, here's the parking lot. And then they think about, well, we should train them on how to do their job. But there are other skills. There are, like you said, there's communication skills is paramount. There's a hidden cost in a lot of the critical skills gaps that are out there that affect recruitment, that affect HR. And if I remember correctly, they add up to over $1 million a year. I mean, that's huge.
I agree. Yeah. No, and it's not something that even you have to go beyond onboarding, and it has to be a lifelong learning experience, because yeah, communications to have someone buy your service or your product is one thing, but communications among just the people in the company, that's a whole different set of communication skills that could be embraced and addressed for companies.
Absolutely. And when you think about onboarding, Susan, the idea of retention, if you're helping your employees develop skills that they need to grow professionally, and that they're going to be positioned effectively to be promoted from within, there'll be a significant savings on recruitment and additional training. The other flip side of that is employee engagement. If you're investing in their professional development, it demonstrates right from the start that this employee is valuable to the organization, to the team. We're dedicated to your growth. We're encouraging loyalty in our organization, and in effect, reducing turnover. What I hear a lot of times is, well, why should I train them when they're only going to leave?
Well, why would you have that mindset going in?
Those are the kind of companies I don't work with, because
right.
it's not a mindset that's pleasant to work with.
No, and that's almost the whole company atmosphere type of attitude. Whereas if you're not investing in them, why would they stay?
Well, have you ever had as a consultant, Susan, I'm sure you've had the situation, because we get to pick and choose our clients, right? So, I'm sure you've had more or less.
We do.
Money notwithstanding, but if you've worked with a client whose mindset or culture of the company is not employee centric, it makes it that much harder to facilitate any kind of change or develop any kind of training program. And then they'll tell you, oh, we want to change. Well, okay, how, where, what? So then they find a consultant who will listen to their woes, and the consultant will make suggestions, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But there is a difference between being a consultant and being a good facilitator.
There is definitely a difference there. I agree. And you said professional development. I was reading a website today, continuous learning. How about that?
Wow.
Let's talk about continuous learning. That's what it should be. That's what you would want the people that join your company to be, continuous learners, because then you have the ability to improve and change and maybe be promoted or come up with an idea for a new who knows where that can go when you give people the chance to keep learning. And if you're hiring people that don't want that,
I had a situation, you talked about sales and promoting from within. I had a situation where I was asked to make recommendations about who would be a good sales manager for this team. And they wanted to promote from within, which they did. And they ended up, and you know the story, they ended up promoting the salesperson who had, been in sales president's club and, had the highest sales revenue and great sales skills, zero management skills. And so you're setting somebody up for failure if you're not giving them, again, taking the time to give them those skills, whether it's communication or conflict management or managing a team. So it's, yes, they want to promote from within, but then they don't really know how to do that.
True. And that's even understanding who you have in your organization currently and what they need to grow as well. So it's not even about offering it to an new person and having it in their onboarding, but checking in and doing assessments in your company on the different people and seeing where they need to help.
Where those skills gaps are, where their current level of competency is, where that level of knowledge is. And then you compare that competency to what the job description is or what the required standard established requirement is for their job. But a lot of people, a lot of companies don't, it's more of a knee-jerk reaction, I think. So then they hire a consultant, to come in and fix it.
It's true. Very true. So what I have to ask you this one. I mean, you kind of delved into it a little bit earlier. What your connection between art and training?
Well, I think it's hard to explain. It's more something that's, we talk about creativity as being ranked as one of the top in-demand skills, and it's the same for trainers and it's the same for facilitators.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly obvious that an artist requires a modicum amount of creativity, and it's probably not quite as obvious that effective trainers need vast amount of creativity. And both training and art use creativity to train somebody else on something. So it's important that, for example, if I'm facilitating and there's a particular complex concept, and the look that you get around the room, the deer in the headlights.
Deer in the headlights.
That's the one. I might have to pivot, and I might have to be flexible in that moment, and I might draw something out, or I might use a metaphor or an analogy or tell a story. Anything that I'm going to be able to do to make that connection with the attendees, that takes creativity. You have to be in the moment. So imagination and inspiration and improv and inventiveness and spontaneity and presentation skills, I think those should be the most sought after skills for not only for a facilitator, but in leaders as well. So I use art or my art background in terms of creativity for the way people should work together as an approach to leadership, as an approach to teams. And I use that to spark a conversation or change or something. I've used them for team building activities. I've involved coworkers in a creative process. It's like in the moment.
I agree. I don't know I forget where I was seeing this, and it must have been last week sometime. Oh, it was. So I met someone at a networking event who is a trainer on getting people to kind of come out of their comfort zone and have better conversations and understand where they're coming from. And he does it through Legos.
Oh, yes. I have seen that. Yes.
I mean, there's just so many different ways to help people to sort of kind of come out of their own shells to learn more. And it's incredible. And I really think that more companies need to start looking at ways to help their employees improve.
It's also, if you think about the different types of communication skills, you've got a direct communicator and then you've got an introverted communicator. And sometimes and this as well as anybody, you're in a classroom situation, there's always the three people who never talk. They never speak. Maybe they don't feel comfortable. Maybe it's cultural. I don't know. But you've got to draw them into the conversation. And hey, if Legos can help do that, great.
Yeah, I was pretty amazed. I'm going to actually meet with him because I'm so curious to learn more about it, but it was very cool. So now we know that we can successfully onboard and train. I want to just go for just a few minutes in a different direction, because you and I obviously talked about when you first meet with someone, and this is part, I would imagine, of sales training, is getting that conversation going with somebody when you first, it's a little bit developing rapport, but it's a little bit more starting to, dig in and find some questions. So what would be your way to kind of get the conversation going?
Great question. I would generally start with why they think there's a problem, or why they think there's this need for training, because oftentimes I find that, and I know we've had this conversation, training seems to be either a check the box or remedial. There's usually, oh, it's time to do training, we've got all this extra money, check the box, or it's remedial. So what I'll do is ask why they feel there's this gap. How do they know? What have they observed? What have they done to fix it in the past? Is it recent? What are the implications for not fixing it? Because if there are implications, then that tells me that there's an immediate need. It's going to affect the bottom line, and I have a better chance of winning that proposal.
Exactly.
So, those would be some of the questions. What are some that you typically ask?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. And the reason I did that is when you think about what you just said back to me, you made it about me.
Yeah.
And I think if you just put yourself on that angle all the time, you're going to end up in the right questions, even if they don't, come out in the succession that you did it. I start a tiny bit higher level, and I say, what's not working in your business?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just start just higher. That's all. And it's, it's some training that I've taken, obviously, in the last 2 years, because I never used to. I always, in my own way, have been that type of questioner. But sometimes you can go to this is what I can offer before you find out if what you offer is what they even need.
That's true.
So when I start at what's not working, it's interesting where you can go. And that whole creativity piece that you teach can help you kind of go in that direction. So what's not working? And well, why do you think that is? And what have you had it. What have you tried in the past to fix what's not working? And did that work?
What I like about you starting higher in that way is you don't know where the conversation's going, but you have to be a skilled questioner in order to, I'll use the word facilitate that conversation, to get to where you need to get, right? Because the one asking the questions is the one that's in control of the conversation, correct?
Correct.
So what happens a lot of time, and I've seen this with salespeople, is they have their litany of questions, and in a particular order, and there's no pivot, there's no flexibility, there's no building on what the answer to the question was. It's like this checklist of questions. So it becomes like a
yes.
What's the word?
You kind of have to be prepared to dig a little deeper when you may have to change your questions a little when you're talking to someone. And that's so key, because they may tell you something and you think you know what the answer is. And then they say something, you go, well, wow, well, tell me more about that. I wasn't prepared for that. I would say that. I wasn't prepared for that answer. Like, tell me more. And how's that affecting you? Is that, is it, and what I've learned, obviously, is if you can get it down to a personal level, then you have an ability to say, well, so how do we pack this to fix this for you?
And I find that a lot of sales folks, and you want to mesh that with flexibility and adaptability and creativity. I don't think there's that mindset. Can you teach creativity to some extent? Can you teach someone to ask questions? Sure. Can you teach them to listen to the answers? Sure. Can you teach them to respond it's hard to do because you have to be in that moment, to your point, in the mindset of the other person. What's in it for them? What's in it for me?
Right.
And build on it. And I think a
Right.
lot of times that gets lost in the shuffle because here's the checklist of questions my sales manager told me to ask.
Right. And another thought here too, while we're talking, this is interesting. Sometimes when I meet with somebody, even before I get to those questions, I always preface it because I always say I may not be able to help you. So I take the fact that I'm going to give them a hard sales pitch right off the table. I may not be
Okay.
able to help you,
Mhm.
but if I can, I will, tell you how I can help you. And so it sort of kind of relaxes people so that they'll end up talking with you a little bit more about what's really going on. Because I will always say too, if I think that I can't help you, I will point you in the direction of someone that can. Because
Oh,
it's ultimately about them. And
so
it's
you're
about
okay.
a situation where it works both ways. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually done that as well where, for me, it's probably not the best cultural fit for whatever reason. And I
Right.
might say, um, nothing against you or the business or anything. You're obviously looking to make this work. I just don't feel I'm the right cultural fit, and a lot of times and this is going to sound warped, but a lot of times they're looking for a man.
As a
Just
trainer.
saying, as a trainer, a facilitator, a consultant, and no matter what your pedigree is or what your bio says, I mean, a lot of times with the culture of the organization, it boils down to testosterone. And I have to walk away. And it's fine, because first of all, I wouldn't enjoy myself and I wouldn't make a difference and I wouldn't have fun.
It's about the right fit, making a difference. That's an unfortunate thing to have happen because I think that we can all learn from each other, whether
Mm,
we're a man or a woman. I've had many sales trainers, affect me. Colleen Stanley writes the book Emotional Intelligence, Sales
yeah,
Success. I love
yeah, great book.
touting her and holding her because she's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's, but like you said, there are just some companies that's just, it's unfortunate, but it's just going to happen that way. And,
And what's
you know,
interesting is it's not the company per se, it's the person who's going to be making that decision about the culture or where it goes. And facilitators should have that kind of knowledge about a cultural fit, obviously experience, um, but there are also this fine line between being a consultant and being a facilitator. Have you noticed anything like that? Like consultants package themselves as facilitators, but they're really not.
I agree. I'm learning more about that as I kind of develop my skills.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
a facilitator has a different agenda than a consultant in a different way, just a different agenda.
And I think too, a lot of we talked about creativity, right? I think facilitators should be creative. I think consultants should be creative in their approach to the client, but the process is the process. In other words, if I'm going to make a recommendation about personalizing your onboarding, right? Um, I'm going to uh, uh, serve the company in such a way that this onboarding is not a training, it's an onboarding. But as a consultant, I might say, I might um, skew and say, well, you need onboarding, but you need training. And a lot of consultants will mesh the two.
And they're two different areas. Absolutely,
Very
I
much so.
agree. And in this day and age, you can't fool around with any of this because you're not going to be able to keep your top talent if you do that. It's yeah, you're right. There is a huge difference, and then many companies need to understand that. That's yeah, you're right. I agree.
And a consultant will say, well, you need an onboarding program and here's the process, right? And a facilitator will say, well, how can we get your employees to acclimate to their workplace and improve their skills with purpose and mission. A little bit different.
Definitely different. Yes. Always learning new things. When I talk to you, Audrey, it's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
So yeah, I think we are good. We've done well. We've talked about training. And so you help companies with onboarding as well as training, which are two different events. And so if someone wants to reach out to you to set up a conversation, how will they reach out to you?
Thanks. Well, I do have a website, arhemployeetraining.com, and I have my LinkedIn profile. I started my career in sales training, but quickly pivoted to soft skills because you need those skills in order to be a good salesperson anyhow, and sales is a process. So let me help you with those skills to get better at sales.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put your website in the chat.
Thank you.
And also, if anybody, you can reach out to Audrey on LinkedIn as well. And I'll put her email there.
Or through you.
Yeah, no, this has been an awesome conversation. Obviously, we could go on for hours with all of the emotional intelligence and conversational intelligence. And so maybe we'll have to have part 2 in a few months.
Part 2.
Awesome.
Thank you, Susan. Really
yeah,
great.
no problem. Glad to have you. And for everybody, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned the difference. And make sure to join me every Tuesday at 12 for Dangerous Conversations about Business, because we're going to help you move forward here. And then next week, my guest, I can't even talk today. This vacation talking. Next week, my guest is Rich Bannister, and he helps companies with an ERTC tax credit on W-2 employees that a lot of people don't understand. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to sign off today, and we're going to be fabulous for the rest of our day. Right, Audrey?
Absolutely. You got it. You rock, Susan. Thank you so much.
All right. Hang on after I end, and we'll chat. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you next week at lunch, Eastern Standard Time, anyway.